8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is Liam Hendricks, and you're watching Crosstown, Crosstalk on the Barroom Network.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Every summer in Chicago, the sunshine spotlights the city's spectacular skyline. Its luxurious lakeshore, marvelous monuments, and the over 200 neighborhoods in the city. And it also brings to light two of the greatest sports franchises in the world. On the north side, it's the Cubs. On the south side, it's the White Sox. This is Crosstown Crosstalk.
Hello and welcome to another very exciting episode of Crosstown Crosstalk presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinnie Parise and I am rocking my Miami Marlins hat due to the fact that I am rooting for our friend of the program, Jake Berger, to make it to the playoffs with the Miami Marlins. We are the South Beach Hitmen at this point in time, but we still have to focus on what's going on in terms of Chicago baseball with the Chicago White Sox and how ugly things are getting at this moment in time. Of course, there is nobody that I would rather bring on to talk about the Chicago White Sox right here, right now, than one of my favorite Twitter follows that you could possibly have in terms of being a White Sox fan. I know I'm wearing a Marlins hat. I'm a White Sox fan. That is, of course, from the great CHGO network of podcasts, Herb Lawrence. Herb, how are we doing?
Doing well. How you doing, Vinny?
Very good, very good. It's good to have you on again.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's always good to talk White Sox despite their record.
Absolutely, despite the record, despite the fact that I'm more willing to come onto the program with a Marlins hat right now because I'm rooting for Jake Berger. I assume you were a fan of Jake.
Big fan, huge fan of Jake Berger, and I will root for success. But at the time, actually, I didn't mind the trade because I think they need left-handed starters. So if this Jake Eater works out, I think it'll be even trade. But right now, Jake Berger is killing the ball, hitting walk-off singles and such like that. I'm just glad he's on a functional organization, and for himself and his family, they can have a good baseball career because he'll been up here toiling in misery.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, when I think about the White Sox most recent game against the Washington Nationals, they lost 13-1. They were down, it was 13-1. They were down 12-1 after 5 innings. They used Michael Kopech as an opener. Was that quite literally the low point of the season, blowing that series to another bad team like the White? Like, it's one thing to lose a bad series to a team like the Nationals who stink, but it's another to get kind of killed and not really have a chance in 2 of the 3 games. What's your takeaway coming out of this series?
I think they've given up a long time ago. I mean, there's hitters who are starting to hit now. Yoan Moncada, Elvis Andrus, to name a few. But yeah, losing to the Nationals and how they lost to the Nationals, just lifeless. It was very bad. But I think they hit their rock bottom, of course, when they had somebody shot at the ball game, and no one's really figured that out still yet. It's kind of weird to me, but that was the low point. But they have much more room to go because the White Sox, as you know, have no bottom. You thought that 81-81 in 2022 was the worst it could get under these circumstances with the type of talent that they have. But this season has challenged that and surpassed my expectations of bad. And they're gone.
Absolutely.
They're gone farther, I'm sure. Well, actually, I'm going to change that. The Chris Getz hiring, even though he might work out eventually, which I don't see how, but, stranger things have happened. That was the low point, continuing to give the White Sox hope by firing Rick and Kenny and then giving us Chris Getz in their place. I was like, God, you had a chance and you failed, Jerry.
Absolutely. Jerry continues to fail. So when I'm in the same boat, I don't really see much from Chris Getz. But every single day I try in my head to talk myself into him being like the guy. Like, it'll turn like when Philly hired their manager in football, the Eagles, when they hired him, everyone kind of ripped on the hire. And I remember this being like kind on that, but like, what is Philly doing? And now he's one of the most well-respected head coaches in the NFL. It's like I keep talking myself into Chris Getz becoming that guy, but Joe Mandel in the chat says 100 losses, book it. Do you care if they reach 100 losses? They only have 4 times in their team's history, most recently being in 2018 when they were purposely trying to lose 100 games and they ended up drafting Andrew Vaughn and all that. They need to go 5-4 over their last 9 in order to avoid losing 100 games. Expecting the White Sox to go over 500 for any particular stretch of games is a huge ask. So where are you on this and the whole 100-loss thing? It gets a lot of conversation around White Sox land, I would say.
Yeah, it does. And I think that the number just, it's a milestone number. If they hit it and go surpass it, it's kind of like a mark of futility, like of ultimate futility. Because, no one really talks about the 97 loss teams or the 98 loss teams. But the 100 loss teams, like, oh, man, those teams were terrible. So I don't necessarily care if they get to one side or the other. It's going to be a futile season no matter what. But others, like when they put this in the annals and say, oh, the White Sox went 62-100 in that year where they're trying, they're like, man, that was an ultimate failure. And they're going to be looking at that in circle. And it's like, yeah, the number stands out as being 100 losses. Only 4 teams that might be under 100 losses this year. And those other 3 teams pretty much were trying to be bad and you were trying to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're trying to be good and you have a season like this, like last year, I remember thinking, like trying to talk myself into that being the worst season based on, like you said, the circumstances and the talent that they have. Going 81-81 was awful. And then I look back at the last 20 years, I'm like, 81-81 is actually like the 5th or 6th best record that they've had throughout the whole span since winning the World Series in 2005. It's not good now. I personally don't care either because they're probably either going to have the 3rd or 4th, depending on how they finish with the Rockies. They're going to have the 3rd or 4th worst record in the MLB. 1 and 2 is already locked up by the A's and the Royals. But do you look at prospects at all? You thinking about the draft lottery in baseball? Like, when do you start thinking about those kinds of things?
I'm not big into that, but I know there are players there that are good. I don't think there's any can't miss, of course, baseball and their draft process and how long it takes for players to usually get up to the major leagues is a crapshoot, especially in the first round. So it's better to be the 3rd pick because you have the same odds as the first 2 teams to get the number 1 pick. But I don't necessarily know anybody except for the name of Vance Honeycutt from North Carolina. Other than that, I know no other prospects that the White Sox could get. Whoever they get, I hope that Mike Shirley gets a chance to do this and we don't pick when we're in the top 3, another like a top 3 or top 4, another Nick Madrigal. Like he's a Major League Baseball player, but not 4th overall in a draft. And I think that was Nick Hostetler who made that pick instead of Mike Shirley. And I think Mike Shirley's picks have been pretty solid. I mean, Colson Montgomery should be with the team in a couple of years. And the development down there in the minors is hit or miss. And the guy who was in charge of that the last 7 years is now in charge of everything. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I would trust in Mike Shirley doing the draft more than I would the past regimes. And it looks like he's a solid guy of evaluating talent. And the 3 people they just brought in, the Brian Bannisters, Josh Barfields, and Gene Watson, they look like solid hires. I don't know yet, but I thought Pedro was a solid hire too. So, what do I know?
Yeah, so I know we've been a lot on the negativity train since the show started, and we'll get right back into negativity soon enough. But a positive note on the Chicago White Sox season has been the play of Robert Jr. He has looked at times like an MVP candidate. Now, I know there's the Shohei Ohtanis and the other players in the league that, kind of rise above a little bit, I think, at times. But Luis Robert, he's kind of been there. He's a really strong finish to the season, could get him over 40 home runs. The White Sox don't see those guys very often. And a lot of the times it's like a Todd Frazier who will like do it a one-off year and then stink the rest of the other time. He's approaching a 5 WAR season. I think that's incredibly notable. He could be in the Gold Glove conversation. I don't know who else is in the mix in terms of that, but he's played a really good center field this season. What about Luis Robert Jr. has stood out to you most this season? And do you think it can continue, or do you think he'll kind of fall into that Dylan Cease, Yoan Moncada after one really good season, kind of come back down to earth a little bit? Where are you at on him?
I think he's the superstar that we've been expecting for a long time. I think years past, the only time you had problems with Luis is rookie year when he's kind of slowed down in September. And then when he was hurt, like in 2022, when they were playing with him with that bruised wrist and he was swinging with one hand, if he plays, if he starts, he's pretty good always when he's actually healthy, and he's been healthy. Sorry, I got fire ambulances
Oh,
out.
that's okay.
And, yeah, I think Luis Robert, his actual play, like he wanted to make 150 games this year, and it looks like he's on his way to doing that. If he plays every game but one, he'll be there. And he's just the model of consistency. I think the other day he realized that he'd been trying way too hard to get to the 40 home run plateau, so that's why the slump in September. But then you see those hot home runs in the 2 consecutive games in Washington. Sweet swings, just easy breezy swings, and he crushes the ball without any real hard swings. And I think he realized, like, I'm still Luis Robert. If I put bat to ball, it's going out, and that's what I like about it. And you're showing that catch in Toronto. That is a big time thing that he's improved from his rookie year, where he won the Gold Glove back in his rookie year. I don't know if you guys remember that. He used to be very apprehensive when he got to the warning track and wouldn't make those catches like he's making them now. Now you see every week he's just making some spectacular catch at the wall of the warning track with the greatest of ease. So he's improved both his offense, his defense, his ability to play every day. And he's not 100%. He's playing hurt 70, 80% of the time, or 70, 80% when he's playing. And I think Luis Robert is a testament to all the rest of the guys to, hey, not only play while you're hurt, but play with some power and play with some force while you're hurt.
Absolutely. And you might remember there was a game last year at Fenway Park where Luis Robert, this was in the first half when he was kind of still playing well before the All-Star. He hit a ball as far as I've seen him hit a ball. Minors, majors, it was over the Green Monster. It was on Apple TV. I think it was a Friday night baseball that they do. I was like, wow, they're going to Fenway. Let's see that again from Luis. Let's get 3 more. Come on. Now, another player, you kind of touched on how hot he's been lately, Yoan Moncada. For the last month and a half, I wrote an article about it. I was actually astonished at the numbers since, the middle of August. We're talking about a 900 plus OPS. Some of the things that we really, truly came to expect from Moncada when he first came over in the Chris Sale trade. Do you think this can continue? Do you think it's kind of a flash in the pan? Would you trade him? Would you bring him back to see if he could do it again? He's just such a polarizing player for only on the field reasons. Off the field, by all accounts, it seems like Moncada is a good dude. It just seems like on the field, it's just so inconsistent all the time.
Yeah, I would bring him back simply because I don't think anybody's going to be trading for him, because $24 million is to his name in his contract next year. And as a player who is inconsistent with both the bat when he is healthy and also often injured, it'll be tough for somebody to go and bite the bullet there without the White Sox paying for a lot of that money there. But, and you traded Jake Berger for that reason too, I think, because he really had no place to play if Yoan Moncada is healthy. But as far as his good play carrying on to next year, I think so. But I'm not going to put my eggs in that basket, because we all seen that every single year that he's played, he's been hurt with something or another. It was, early problems with different things. Then in 2020, it was the COVID. Then 2021, it was the lingering effects of COVID. Then in 2022, he got a different injury. Earlier this year, he gets the back problems. And so I think back problems don't really go away. There just have to be something you have to play with. We saw Joe Creedy have back problems, and once he left the White Sox, he went to the Twins. He had to pretty much retire because back problems are driving him out of the league. And so I hope he does something this offseason to find some relief for his back. It seems like in the second half, he's found a way to play with the numbing and the stuff that's going on with his back, and found a solution. Because, yeah, the bat's been nice. The doubles have been good. I think he's hit 8 home runs now this year, which is way under where he should be. He should be a 20 home run guy minimum every year. And it looks like the old Yoan's coming back, except for the eye. He hasn't walked a lot this year. I think he's walked under 20 times this year, which is not Yoan's style. And so I would like to see him get back to being more selective, and then picking out his pitch and rocking in it. Like that year in 2019 gave us so much hope that he was going to be an MVP guy every single year, and he hasn't come close to duplicating that. 2021 was pretty good, but not 2019. 2019 gave us a peek into the potential, the epic floor or ceiling for Yoan Moncada. All we've seen pretty much has been floor for him ever since then.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm with you. After that 2019 season, I was like, this guy's going to make 10 All-Star games. He's going to be, their franchise player, him and Luis Robert Jr. with that Eloy coming up at the time. I mean, I don't feel dumb for believing in this team and it all come crashing down because there was all sorts of signs that I feel like 70% of the league would have turned these guys into, a perennial contender each and every year. But I'm going to take you back to probably, in my opinion, the darkest day of the Chicago White Sox season that is in terms of on-field performance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the day where they were leading the Cubs 3-1 going into the ninth inning. And our pal Christopher Morel Jr. hits a walk-off home run to give the Cubs the victory. It was a devastating night for the White. That to me is like the nail in the coffin of this White Sox season. Oh, no, it has a lot to do with who they were playing, of course. And I'm curious, from your point of view, how was it going to the CHGO office the next day? And you got you and all the guys you work with on CHGO White Sox, even a couple of the Bears guys. My friend Mark Harmon, former fan-sided colleague, he's a Sox guy doing Bears stuff. What was it like to face the Cubs guys in the office that weekend? Because it was not fun for me anywhere I went.
They were fine. They didn't give me too hard of a time because they knew the White Sox we pretty much kicked ourselves every time we would see the CHGO Cub people. But we were there. Myself, Luke Stuckmeyer, who is the host of CHGO Cubs, and then Cody Delmendo were all at the game, and then some other CHGO people because we had an outing that night. And so see that live, I was like, oh God, what could be worse? Because yes, it was a lost season already, but a little solace would have been had if we would have split the series with the Cubs, got that dub, swept them in their home ballpark, kept the BP Cup or whatever the hell they call it now, even though it doesn't mean it much. But that would have been like some bragging rights, like, oh, you guys are going to the playoffs, can't even beat a team that's 30 games under 500 type of stuff. But yeah, I went into the office and they were fine, but it was other Cub fans on Twitter and such who know me as a Sox fan and just talking. It's like, hey man, I don't want to root against your team. Calm that down. Calm that nonsense down. You guys won. Enjoy. Christopher Morel, enjoy yourself. But I thought that was more of a bad pitch than a good hit because, Christopher Morel, you saw him swing from his shoes every time he threw him a slider outside the zone, and then we throw him a fastball middle. What do you think that man's going to do? That's what he is. It's like throwing Javi Baez a middle fastball when you got the slider right there, and the man's going to swing at anything that's in the ballpark. So, yeah, good luck to them. If they make the playoffs, and depending on who they play, I'll be rooting for my friends to have a good time, but not rooting for the team to win. But yeah, that was a detrimental day, especially to be there and hearing that terrible "Go Cubs Go" song at the end because it means nothing. It's a dumb song that should be sang at the beginning of the game because they already won when you sing it already. I hate that.
Yeah. I hate it too, and it drives me crazy. And that was a tough night all around. Probably the low point of the season. But one of the high points of the season was when Liam Hendriks made his return. Obviously, Liam Hendriks, both on and off the field, is just elite. He's an elite talent. He's been one of the best closers in baseball for a handful of years. And then he does all sorts of great stuff off the field, and everybody seems to like him. He came on this show and gave us an hour of his time and was one of the most incredible people that I've ever talked to that, reached such heights in their life. Would you bring him back? Like, where do you think you want to give him a chance with a winning organization to finish out his career? Where does stand on Liam Hendriks coming into 2024? Obviously, he's got the injury to go with, along with coming back from his cancer diagnosis.
You're asking Herb the fan, yes, I would bring him back because I think that his mentorship of everybody in the bullpen, and especially Gregory Santos, saying, hey, this is how you become a closer. When you give up that home run to Christopher Morel, you got to swallow that and forget about it and go out and pitch the next day and have a quick memory about that. And that knowledge and that know-how, especially as a guy that's bounced around the league however long he did until he figured it out with himself in Oakland, that is very valuable that you can't get. And the $15 million is going to be paid either way. It's going to either be paid in the salary that he's making next year, which he probably won't pitch next year, but also it's Liam Hendriks. The man came back from cancer and pitched 6 months later. So I'm not going to count him out for not pitching next year. Or you're going to have to pay him in like an annual payment. I don't know how many years the $15 million will eventually be paid to Liam Hendriks. But I think there has to be something with the payroll. And that's why if I'm GM/owner, I thinking maybe I don't pay him that money and I do the annulment or the annual payments of that for Liam Hendricks, so I can have $15 million of cap space cleared out, because Jerry's going to be counting it down and the budget's going to be the budget. And Chris cannot, have, if he doesn't have $15 extra million to work with 3 starting pitchers to get, maybe a second baseman, maybe a right fielder, it's going to be tough to fit all that in if there's 15 million already gone from the jump with a player that's not going to be playing for the most part for next year. But he's very valuable. And if I don't pick up the option, I'm finding a way where I can have him in the building, sign him to a longer term extension, like sign him to a 2-year deal. So he won't play in 2024, but if he gets healthy and he's ready to play in 2025, you still have him in the building. He's still your closer for 2025, where you would hope that your team would be still trying to win, because at that time you'll still have Luis Robert, hopefully. I think you'll still have Yohan Moncada. You'll probably have Costa Montgomery as your shortstop coming up as the starting shortstop for the White Sox. So that would be a good idea for the White Sox, just to make sure that that person and the player too is in the building, because once he is healthy, I guarantee there's going to be at least 10, 12 teams like, hey, yeah, I want that on my team, especially the closer. And that person is awesome too. And your neighborhood and what he does off the field is just unbeatable.
Absolutely. Herb, were you at the game in 2021, the blackout game, the playoff game that they won?
I was not. I haven't gone to any playoff game in my White Sox history, which is sad.
Oh, we got to get Herb to a playoff game. I'll pay for your ticket next time they make it, because I know it's not going to be for 10 years. I can start saving up now. Herb, it was one of the most spectacular experiences of my sports fanhood. And you know me, I love every sport. I follow every sport as close as I possibly can, while still maintaining my social life. So it makes me so angry to think back to what that night was like. And I'm sure it was great watching it on TV too. And the fact that they just messed it up so bad when that can be your team, does it infuriate you as much as it infuriates me? Because there were people saying that stadium that night in round 1 of the playoffs was as loud and crazy as any Cubs playoff game, as any Bears playoff game. The White Sox magnitude, when they are that good and have that good of a chance to win, is crazy. And it makes me so angry that Jerry Reinsdorf is just like, Tony La Russa. Chris Getz.
Yeah, it does make you mad, because multiple things came out of that game. I mean, we were very hyped. That one game that we won in the playoffs versus Houston, I remember I was on cloud 9. Chris Tannehill and I did a post game on 670 The Score. That's the only time really I've done a post game on the Score when I was there, because Mitch was like, yeah, this is too exciting. The people are hyped here. The building was electric. And he asked us, like, can you do it? It's like, hell yeah, because I want to be a part of that night. And the other thing that came out of that night was Leury Garcia getting his 3-year, $16 million contract because he hit a home run. And credit to him. It was a big home run he hit. I think he hit it off of Yimi Garcia. I still remember that name. Yimi Garcia, he hit it off of, and I was so surprised that he hit it and put us, the White Sox, in a good standing that game, where it was pretty much like that was the exclamation point of the game, and it cemented us winning that game. And, of course, the next day, Carlos Rodon, I was hyped for the Carlos Rodon start, and he started off real hot, and then Carlos Correa messed that up. But, yes, you could see this team and this fan base is starving for a winner, starving for something. They were promised something, and it almost got to its peak. 2020 was great. Getting beat by the A's was not. And then you go and win the division. Finally, you haven't won a division since 2005 or 2008, and you're there. You're like, oh man, what Rick Hahn said came to fruition. We're coming. These players are still young. And then the 2022 debacle and what's happened subsequently, it's like we were such a young, fun, vibrant team that everybody in the major leagues wanted to be. The Tim Anderson energy was palpable. We were trying to change the game like Tim wanted us to do. And then, before that, we got Tony La Russa, which I think put a kink in what we were doing. And then just the 2022 season just cemented all that, put a little dirt on our grave, and then this year we're keep on going down. We're past 6 feet under, and we know that we're probably not going to get to that apex. As you said, the next playoff game might be 10 years from now, because we know Jerry's not going anywhere. Jerry's going to do the things that he wants to do, but he wants to win quickly, but he doesn't want to spend a lot of money for this team, because that's what this team needs to do, because they don't have any prospects really to trade away to get better players. And the prospects that they do have are a couple years away, like Colston Montgomery. I don't know if Brian Ramos is going to be the guy or not in a couple years, but they're a couple years away from actually helping this team. So you have to do the most inefficient way of adding talent, which is free agency. And we know Jerry Reinsdorf has limits on getting top tier talent. And so it's very sad that we're at this point where just 2 years ago, we're celebrating a good victory, and you being there, that picture showed me, it's like, man, brings me goosebumps, because I can feel that energy that the White Sox and their fans had that day, and it's just been zapped out of it. Good people who want to just love their team in peace and want to have some success. If this team would have made the playoffs this year, I think most fans would have been disappointed if they didn't go past a certain point. But then they were like, you know what? 3 playoff years in 4 years, I'll take that every time. That's a good run. But now it's just like we don't see the playoffs in our horizon at all. And it's just now I think fans are making choices like, do I want to continue supporting this team that only brings me misery? Or do I want to go and look at some other team that maybe give me a little bit of, hope and enjoyment of baseball again? So I don't blame any fan that feels like they want to go somewhere else and look at another team while still having an eye on the White Sox, as they are to their core a White Sox fan because they love the team. But I'm a Padres fan, even though they haven't done well. I like to see them do well every once in a while. You got the Marlins hat. You said you want to see Jake Berger do well. That same thing I'm feeling right now. Live vicariously through other fan bases and hope one day that Jerry Reinsdorf either wakes up or trades the team or sells the team, and the new owner actually says that he or she has a vision and money to spend on this team and for this fan base. Because if Jerry really wanted to do something for the fans, as he said, he would make this team a winner by next year with spending a bunch of money, which we know he won't do.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the Minnesota Twins even spend some money and turn themselves into at least a division winner. They don't win the playoffs very often, but they've spent money and turned their team around. They came in last place. I think it was 2019 they came in last place, it was 2021. And then they had all this money, and all of a sudden, the Twins are back to being where they are. And I think people need to start taking more pride in winning a division title. Only one team wins the World Series. It's time to start looking at a division title as a little bit more I don't know the word I'm looking for. Elusive, something that the White Sox should be doing and going for and being excited about. I can't wait till the next time we experience that as a fan. Herb, I'm curious though. Can you think of a moment? It probably came in 2022 when you were like, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble." And then a second moment where you're like, "This thing is a failure." And that probably either came at the end of 2022 or at some point in 2023. Because for me, I have both of those moments locked in my brain on when they happened.
It probably had to happen last year when the Guardians came to town and the White Sox were close enough where they had some hope. I forgot how many games they were behind at that time. But then the Guardians just came in and swept the White Sox here in Guillotine Rate Field. I was like, yeah. And then when they were winning their championship and they're celebrating, they're saying, fuck the White Sox and all that stuff. Fire Tony. I was like, hey, man, they're ranking on the White Sox. And I said, they deserve it. I mean, and then they're ranking on NBC Sports Chicago with the Will Smith, Fresh Prince. When's everybody else going to show up in the division type of a tweet they sent out at the beginning of the year. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much the end of this thing. Even though I kind of had hope this year at the beginning of the year, I think I had them down for like 84 wins. God, I can't believe they came short of that. They came way short of that.
Well short.
And so I had hope in this offseason, and I think most people had hope this past year. It's like, Tony's gone. We got some new blood with Pedro Grifol, and let's give him a try. Hopefully everybody's healthy. we'll get right back to being a winner. No, it didn't happen at all. And so I think that last year when Cleveland was celebrating their AL Central championship, I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because they were young. I think they were the youngest team in baseball at that time. And I was like, they're not getting any. I mean, they're not going to get worse, which they did. But Jose Ramirez is still going to be there. And all these other players are still going to be there. And Aaron Savale is going to be there. Now he's not. But I was like, hey, this Cleveland Guardians team is first to be reckoned with. I didn't even look at the Twins as a team that could be doing this, but they have. I mean, Royce Lewis and all their pitchers they got on that team. Congratulations to them, but I'll be looking forward to their 3 losses in the playoffs real quick, and they join the White Sox on the couch.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. There's no Yankees in the playoffs this year, Herb. That's always been the big issue for the Twins. They might get all win this year. I'm just warning you, they might get all win this year with no New York Yankees making it to the playoffs. They're absolute kryptonite. Our buddy Gabe in the chat says the White Sox are no longer the laughingstock in the city. The Bears have taken over. Do you agree with that sentiment? Because some of the things we're hearing on our Hallis Hall make me wonder if the White Sox are actually a tick above the Bears right now.
I get what Gabe is saying, but no, the Bears are the biggest team in town. So this and their stories seem more outsized than the White Sox, and everybody in this town who is a sports fan, grew up here pretty much, is a Bears fan. Not everybody is a White Sox fan, so they don't feel the pain as much. But the White Sox, remember, they have done this for 2 years consecutive. Yeah, the Bears had hopes to do something this year, but they're coming off a 3-14 year where they were the worst team in football. And yes, we as fans had expectations and hopes that they were going to beat the Packers and maybe division champions and maybe come close to the Lions or the Vikings. But no, it wasn't to be. And what they're doing with the Allen Williams stuff, it's White Sox-esque, but we've been there. We've done that. As we said, there was somebody shot in the field at Guaranteed Rate Field that we still haven't found out who got shot. That's still a mystery. That happened this year. And the Chris Getz thing, like the Bears, for all their faults, they've hired people where I've actually agreed with the hires, like Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Matt Eberflus. I agreed with all those hires. Those are actual people who are qualified for their jobs and have done them to varying degrees of success or failure so far. But where you've hired a guy, and we had guys here for 20 plus years had really done anything, finally fired them in season, which the Bears I don't think ever will do, fire a general manager in season, and then replace them with a person that was part of that failure. Like, I get it, Gabe. The Bears have been bad, but the White Sox are the blueprint. They have established the worst. And the Bears, to be this, would have to go 0-17 to be the White Sox, because there's no way. Because we were 81-81, and we're worse than that this year. The Bears, they win 3 games. They're the same they were last year. And they got 2 draft picks. And if they're that bad, one of them is going to be the number 1 pick. And with the quarterback in USC out there, Caleb Williams, if Justin Fields isn't the guy, you immediately go to Caleb Williams and say, hey, sorry, Justin, it's been real. We got this youngster here. And then remember, you got the Panthers first-round pick too. So they're not going to be good either. So they're in a much better spot than what the White Sox are. As we talked earlier, even if the White Sox get the number 1 pick, that guy is not going to change this franchise overnight. The Bears get the number 1 pick. That person's changing the franchise next year. And they have brighter pastures and greener skies. So I don't think the Bears are close to the White Sox, even though it looks bleak right now.
I actually agree. Because you don't have Stephen A. Smith calling the White Sox trash on national television like he did the Bears this morning, or Colin Cowherd ripping on Justin Fields, or, these big media heads talking trash about the White Sox on air. They do that for the Bears, so it seems like it's worse, even though if they covered baseball to the extent that they covered football, they would be saying the same things about the White Sox, if not at a higher magnitude. So, yes, I actually am going to agree with that. There's a world where the Bears have Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. featured in their offense next season. I mean, something like that. You're right. That's franchise defining. So I'm going to ask you, kind of veering away from baseball, leading into football a little bit, where does Herb Lawrence stand on Justin Fields?
I'm still in the camp of Justin Fields, but he has shown nothing to get me to the next level. I think that player that showed up last year, if he showed up again with the running and the creativity off the run, is a person that can get this team dubs. Like we saw that in the San Francisco game early in the season last year. I think Justin Fields, they need to incorporate DJ Moore much more. Mooney missed most of the Tampa Bay game, so that was a big blow. But also, I think that they're using Justin Fields in a way that he isn't comfortable with and that he's not the best equipped to do. Get him out of the pocket. If he doesn't see something, which he doesn't see a lot of wide open receivers, do something else, because obviously what he's doing and what the offensive coordinators are asking him to do, Luke Getsy's asking him to do, is not hitting with him right now. And so get him as comfortable as he wants to be. Ask him what do you like to do? What do you want to do on this play? Give him the responsibility to make a check at the line if he doesn't like a play or something like that. Because you see right there with these plays you're playing right now, the wheels are undeniable. And defensive coordinators, when they just see him in the pocket, not design runs, they're like, thank Jesus. That is awesome. We only got to defend his pass. Awesome. Perfect. Because he can be like Lamar Jackson. He can be as deadly as Lamar Jackson. Maybe not MVP of the league, but he can be somewhere close to that, where defenses are up all night before the game and saying, man, how are we going to stop this dude from running all over us? And then when we're doing our zone defense to make sure we keep eyes on him, then he's throwing the ball over our head because DJ Moore's got behind our defensive backs, or Mooney's got behind our defensive backs, because we know he has a deep ball. At Ohio State, he's shown that. Last year, hell, he showed a deep ball propensity, giving it to the vast bums they had on the team, like Velus Jones or Equiminius St. Brown, et cetera, et cetera. So he has talent. I just think that they're not, as the White Sox do, they're not developing that talent in the correct way. And he has failed himself. Like, there's been reads he's missed, like straight, hey, hit that guy right now, foot on the ground, ball needs to be out type of stuff. And that is coaching. And that is also on Justin to pull the trigger, trust in yourself, and trust in the read. And so he needs to get better at that. And this week versus Kansas City, it's going to be real tough because Chris Jones is back, but he's working himself up from being not playing a lot in the second game they had. And I think he'll be in the backfield a lot this year or this week. So I want Justin to be running. I want him to do his thing, because Kansas City's defense, I don't think they're that tough. And so there could be yards to be had. And it's going to be a shootout because we know Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the boys are going to put up points versus that Bears defense, of course.
I'm curious how your Thursday night's looking. Be the type of night where Herb is watching the White Sox they're off tonight, but they're going to be playing against the Boston Red Sox this weekend. Your overall scope of the weekend, you're going to watch the 49ers versus Giants game tonight? You interested in anything else? What's on your sports docket from now till, let's say, Monday?
Yeah, definitely going to be watching that game later on tonight. I mean, there's going to be no Saquon Barkley, so I think it's going to be a romp. I'm going to take that, 49ers minus 10. I think that's easy money because I don't think the Giants, firstly, are good. I don't know, after they played Arizona, if they went back to New York and then came back out to San Francisco or just stayed out in the West Coast. That would be the smarter move because that's a lot of travel in the 4 days. So that also would factor into the whole equation. And I think that they're going to win that game. The Giants are going to get blown out tonight versus the 49ers. Then on Saturday, I'm trying to think Friday, do I have anything that I'm looking forward to? Not necessarily. On Saturday, the Illini, my favorite football team, they play and they host Florida Atlantic. It's a team that they should beat, but the Illini haven't played well this year. Even in their one win versus Toledo, they were challenged and won it by a last-second field goal. So I'm looking for them to bounce back after they got beat pretty soundly by Penn State last week. And then on Sunday, yeah, of course, I'm going to be in front of that TV. I know the White Sox finish off with the San Diego Pot. No, that's next week. Sorry,
that's next weekend. Yeah.
I was thinking next weekend.
It's Boston this weekend at Fenway.
Boston this weekend. So we got to do a post-game show. I think it's early, and I think that Bears game is at 3:25 with the Kansas City Chiefs. So it probably works in perfectly right after I finish the post-game at CHGO. I'll be looking at that Bears game and probably in the studio with all the rest of the guys like Adam Hogue and Nicholas Mario. Well, actually, Nicholas will be in Kansas City, but Greg Braggs Jr., seeing him throw things, get mad. See, I thought I was a big-time Bears fan. Greg Braggs Jr., that guy.
Former host on this network.
Yeah, he is a lunatic. He
yeah.
loves the Bears. Like, lives and dies with the Bears. I live and die with them on the Sunday that they play, but every single day of his life is Bears, Bears, Bears. And that's a good way to live, but also the Bears have not treated him well either.
No, Braggs makes me sad. And listen, I have a couple teams I feel that way about. There are 3 teams I feel that way about. Braggs has it all in one basket, it seems. Like, he likes the Cubs. He likes the Whites or the Blackhawks, I'm sure. But he puts a lot of stock in the Bears, and I respect it. I think he's done great things with his career. I'm a huge fan. Herb, before we let you go, I'm going to give you an opportunity to promote anything you have going on in terms of CHGO, something big you're planning, whether it be with them or on your own. What's going on with your content game right now? I'm a huge fan.
Thank you, sir. And Joe brings up a good point. Joe Mandel says Notre Dame, Ohio State. I forgot that game's going to be on Oregon versus Colorado. I'm going to see if Colorado's real or if Oregon takes them down, which I believe is going to happen. I think Oregon's going to absolutely run and kill Colorado. I think their offense is way too good, and Colorado's defense is very suspect.
So you think if Colorado wins, though, you'll be a firm believer?
If they win at Oregon, yeah. If they win at Eugene, all that noise, that great-ass team, yes. I would like Deion is – I'm already kind of a believer. I think ultimately they'll win 7 games and go to a bowl, which is outstanding from a 1-11 team.
Last year.
Yeah, it's absolutely outstanding. But winning versus either one of these teams, if they win either at Oregon or at home versus USC next week, that is a cementing victory for the Colorado Buffaloes. So, yeah, what he's done, I was apprehensive initially of Deion's coaching career. I'm a believer in what he does. He preaches positivity, preaches lifting players up and such like that and letting them be themselves. I'm in for it. I initially thought, he was kind of all about himself, but Deion's about himself, but he's also about other people bringing themselves up. But you can follow me at CHGO _ White Sox on Twitter, or Ecknerwall23 for the other Twitter or X handle. But nothing much. We just do shows like every day. So we got one later on today at 5 o'clock, live off day show. And then we're on Big Ten Bets After Dark later after that at 6:30, where we're going to be talking about Big Ten bets that we are looking for. It's me, Sean Anderson, myself, and Cody Delmendo from CHGO Cubs, who do Big Ten bets this year.
Very, very good. I didn't realize you guys were all that much into the Big Ten. That's awesome. Huge fan of all that. I'm going to start following along with that.
I'm more into the actual games. Those two are the hosts of our CHGO Bets show, so they're more inclined to the gambling part. I'm very, very much a novice on gambling, especially with the Big Ten. But my philosophy got broken last week, where Iowa scored their last second touchdown, and then they covered the 28.5 that I said that every time when they're 20+ favorites, bet the other team, and those jerks went out and scored all those points because their coach got to win 25 or got to score 25 points per game.
That's very funny. Herb, I can't thank you enough for coming on our show. When I found out that Ecknerwall was Lawrence backwards, I think you told it to me on the show one time. Oh, that's freaking sweet. What an awesome Twitter handle. Herb, you do great work. Please keep it going. Please keep bringing a beacon of positivity. I think even though you might not feel that you do that, I believe you do. It's fun to follow along with what you guys are doing over there, and keep it going, please.
Thank you very much, Vinny. And yes, Joe, I thought that was crap. That even the explanation that the great, I forgot his name right now, the coach, Sean McVay, the other day, his explanation didn't even make sense. He was definitely politicking there, kicking a field goal down by 10. Oh, man, I feel sorry for people who bet on that game. I wish the books would refund them, but I know they won't. And I feel good for the people who cashed, who got that money, who had the Rams +7.
Yep, there are plenty of people that cashed. And if you want more fantasy football and more betting tips, one, you could watch Herb's show, Big Ten Bets. And, of course, you could come back to the Barroom Network over the weekend. There will be all sorts of Bears stuff as they preview their game with the Kansas City Chiefs. Hope they don't lose by 50. Patrick Mahomes hosting Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm very much looking forward to it. And Herb, can't thank you enough. Everybody watching, commenting on baseball. I know it's hard to be a baseball fan if you're a White Sox fan right now. There will be probably a Cubs heavier episode next weekend on Thursday, so make sure you tune in for that. Of course, Bardon Talking Hockey on Wednesday. Very much looking forward. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network and CHGO. Listen to it all. And as always, thank you for listening. Go Jake Burger.
Another happy landing.